My name is Jeffrey Verity Schofield, and I am an ego lifter. So today I'm going to make the argument that being an ego lifter is not necessarily a bad thing, and why perhaps you should also be an ego lifter. Now, in a traditional weightlifting mindset, an ego lifter is someone who loads up a ton of plates just to see how much weight they can lift and just to impress other people. That's not really what I'm talking about. In the dictionary, ego is defined as a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. Now, your sense of self-importance, I don't think this should be tied to lifting weights, but your sense of self-esteem, I think at least tying part of that towards lifting weights, I think is not necessarily a completely bad idea. First of all, a few clarifications. I'm not talking about using poor technique. If you're using poor technique simply to move more weight, that is rarely, if ever, going to end well. So don't, just load up more weight on the bar just because you want to impress yourself or impress other people or to beat your logbook. You really need to be smart about your technique. If you don't know what good technique is, there are plenty of resources online. I have a book about it. I have plenty of videos about it. There are plenty of other videos online. Most of them are going to be pretty good. And you should be using good technique almost all the time, if not all the time. You should strive to be using perfect technique 100% of the time. So I'm not talking about, loading up 800 pounds and doing a quarter squat. That's not that's not going to be effective. That's not going to be good for long-term progress. I'm also not talking about causing a big scene in the gym. So if you're that guy who is grunting and, get ready, up, lightweight, baby, that's not really going to help your progress. There is evidence that making noise while you are lifting can increase power production and force production. However, it's still sort of a dick move, so maybe don't do it. Even if it can help performance slightly, it's not really worth disturbing other people. Plus, if you're getting really pumped up, amped up, pre-worked out, upped before a set, that is generally not good for long-term progress. If you look at most professional athletes, they're not getting super amped up before a set. Some will, but a lot of them won't. Simply because if you're putting yourself in that fight or flight mode, you are not going to recover as well. It's going to mess up your hormones, and just for long-term progress, not a good idea. I'm also not talking about maxing out all the time. In fact, for most of my clients, I say rarely, if ever, max out. It's not really worth it. You don't get a ton of benefit, and you can check where you are through other easier means. So if you do a 3-rep max, a 5-rep max, heck, even a 10-rep max, it can basically tell you where you are. And, just do a 3-rep max, a 5-rep max. That's going to tell you everything you need to know about how your progress is going. Martin Lyses, the reigning world's strongest man, he didn't max out on the deadlift until he was like 24 years old. He would always do 3 reps just to test where he was. He would never test his 1-rep max. So ego lifting does not mean always testing your max. It also doesn't mean going to failure all the time. Similarly, if you're always going to failure, especially on the big movements, you are going to have trouble recovering, especially as you get stronger and stronger. There is ample evidence that training to total failure for multiple sets might not be the best course of action. And keeping 1 rep in the tank, 2 reps in the tank, and being able to do more quality reps and quality volume might be a better strategy in the long term. So I'm not talking about ego lifting, always train to failure, ego lifting, always max out. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm also not talking about just choosing exercises that allow you to move the most weight. Yes, you can probably leg press a ton of weight. Same with quarter squats. I mean, I can quarter squat probably 40 or 50% more than my full range of motion squat. And am I doing this for ego? No. But maybe a little bit, as we'll see. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in moderation. When I'm talking about ego lifting, I'm primarily saying you should be caring about what you're lifting. You should care. That's all. invest some of yourself, some of your self-esteem, some of your ego, some of you into the process of lifting weights. If I ask you, your 5 rep max deadlift, and you don't know before you're doing a deadlift set, it's going to make it harder to push yourself. So keep a training log, track your progress, and care about how much you are lifting. Don't use poor technique. Don't max out all the time. Don't just lift heavy loads for the sake of lifting heavy loads. But do use your ego. Do be competitive. Just temper that competitiveness with intelligence, with a deep understanding of how to get to your goals. And honestly, a great amount of effort is going to be just as good as a good plan. Both are going to be necessary for optimal results. But if I had to choose, someone who follows a good plan, but sort of, half-arses it, or someone who has, not that good of a plan, but they really know how to work their butt off, and they really care about how much weight they're lifting, and they have their eyes on lifting heavier weights, again, with good technique, not going to failure all the time, the second person is going to get better results. Okay, I'm just calling it like it is. Caring about how much you lift and caring about your results and your progress is really, really important. So what are the takeaways from this? Don't use poor form. Don't max out all the time. Don't do 1 rep maxes if you can help it most of the time. But you should keep a training log. You should know your personal bests. You should know what you lifted last week, and you should be trying to get better. And that takes a certain amount of ego. If you look at most of the best in any field, they're going to have a pretty healthy ego. Some might say they have an overinflated ego, but you need at least some ego to succeed in life. So that is all for today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, which would be so very strange. Stay safe wherever you are. Be careful out there, and I will see you next time. Peace.